All right, Prez, Mike's hot, and in 3, 2, 1, you're live.
What a show we got lined up for you all today. Ralph Michaels, Ross Benjamin making his Virgin debut, and Andrew McInnis sitting in for Dave Sherp. And we're going to look at college basketball, Montana against Idaho State. We're going to look at Illinois and their Big Ten tourney hopes. Ross Benjamin's going to take apart Boston College versus Miami, the T-Wolves and the Clippers. Andrew McInnis, a couple of hockey bets. Teddy covers. What are you discussing in your big game breakdown, brother?
We're going to talk some conference tournament thoughts and how to approach them and what we're looking at from dogs and what we're looking at from favorites. So, yeah, lots of college hoops on today's show, but certainly NHL, NBA, and all kinds of interesting discussion with Teddy and the Prez. Lauren?
So before we bring in Ross, Teddy, I got a question for you as a married man who's been with the same woman for a million decades. Last night I'm with Vivian, and she was like, when we go upstairs, can you make some moves on me? As a guy who's been with the same woman for a decade, what does that mean? I was so lost, Teddy. I was like, am I supposed to ease my arm around you? Like we get the butterflies. Do I lean in? Don't I lean in? I was absolutely baffled. Normally it's like, we doing it? Yeah, we're doing it. Okay, bend over. Let's go. So I had to pull moves last night and I failed. I failed and went to bed frustrated. I'd love to hear from you married men out there. How do you pull moves on your wife? Like, what do you do? What's the technique and strategy? Do you have one?
So, in general, not always, but in general, when Kara's ready, we just go upstairs. Like, hey, babe, let's go upstairs. All right.
There's
no.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. There's none of that. But there are times you got to pull the romance, Prez. You know how to do a little romance. You can be romantical.
A little butt slap. Are you ready?
Who knows? What? Who knows what Viv wants? I don't know what Viv wants, dude.
So she told me. She's like, I'm like, well, what kind of move do you want me to pull? And she's like, pretend we're in bed together for the first time ever. And
okay.
Do you hear her in the background? She's screaming, oh my God, you're discussing this live on air? Anyway, right. I failed, bro. I failed. I was terrible. I'm asking for help. Please, in the comment section, what kind of moves does a married man pull? Ralph Michaels joining us, everyone. Ralph. Oh, Ross, don't worry. You're coming on next, and we will get your advice on what a grandpa pulls with his grandma. Ralph, how are you, my friend? Nice to see you on the show.
Doing great, guys. Prez, my suggestion to you would be, what do you normally do the first time you have sex with someone? You open up your wallet, you pay them.
Nice, Ralph. Okay. I'm not going to do that technique, but I appreciate the advice. Let's get into our first game of the day. Montana -6.5 against Idaho State. How do we bet this one?
This is a game that I actually used as the client release as a 2-star play. And these teams just played in the regular season finale. Montana did win that game. Now, it's a very interesting dynamic as part of the scheduling. And it's part of the reason I only made it a 2% client release. The bottom seeds played Saturday and Sunday and had Monday off. The Big Sky voted that, the 1 and 2 seeds are going to play that first day and then have a day off. Well, Idaho State upset Northern Colorado, so they played Saturday, Sunday, have Monday off. Montana, by the way, the number 3 seed, played last night. So it's a little reverse. Very rarely does the higher seed have less rest than the lower seed, but when an upset happens, it occurred here. But I look at beating Idaho State in the regular season finale. They beat them by 14, despite having 22 fewer free throw attempts. It's also a situation where Montana is one of the most experienced teams in the country. All 5 starters are seniors. 4 of those starters have multi-years of starting experience. 3 of them have 3 or more years. And the 5th starter is Oke, who has started almost every game. He has 26 starts this year. The Bobcats away from home went 6-2 ATS as a small dog or a favorite. And while Idaho State was a 4.5-point favorite in the opening round, that was a game they won. They pulled the upset in the second round, but there really was no great performance by them. It was just a Northern Colorado team that was banged up down the stretch and didn't play well. I look at the offenses, the recent performance. Bobcats have shot 50.9%, 60.4%, and 52.9% the last 3 games. The Bengals have shot 46.8, 42.9, and 42.1%. The defenses are basically even. But when we look at 3-point shooting, offense and defense, Montana, huge edges. 34 in the nation on offense. The defense is poor at 287. But Idaho State, number 256 on offense and number 305 on defense. Montana, with their 5 senior starters, gets it done tonight.
So, Ralph, this number, I mean, it's the series has been dominated by Montana, not just this year, for in every recent season. Montana's clearly the better of these 2 teams. You talked about all their senior starters, and yet the number feels short and seems short. Is this a scenario? Is there any home court here for Idaho State playing in Boise? Or why do you think this number is as short as it is? Because this felt to me like something that would be approaching double digits, and it's not. And I'm curious as to why you think that's the case.
Well, Teddy, I can tell you this. I thought Idaho State's number versus Northern Colorado only getting 4 was very short. I actually gave out Northern Colorado and lost on that game. So this team did burn me. And again, when you're a professional bettor, you realize that if a team burns you once, that there's still reason to go back to them. If they burn you 2 or 3 times, you may say, okay, I've had enough. But a 1-game anomaly size, obviously, if they were only a 4-point dog against the number 2 seed and pull the upset, to me, I'm very fine with this number. But I think the matchup is better for Montana in this game than it was for Northern Colorado.
Ralph Michaels joining us, everyone. Ross Benjamin after him, Andrew McInnis after that. If you like what you're hearing, take a second out of your day and hit that like button. It would be greatly appreciated. Also, subscribe to our channel. A whole bunch of us made some great betting information videos that are going up this week. Ralph, have you done yours yet? And if so, what were they?
I have not. I was waiting till the very end to see what everybody covered, and I was going to try to scoop up some things that people may need. So, I was thinking about the importance of a half point and if to buy on or offs or those kind of things for the NFL. So I have to decide by today because the deadline's winding down to put your hosts in, but I'm going to try to grab something that has a void and fill that void.
There we go. Illinois to win the Big Ten tourney plus 310. You like that bet? Tell us why.
Well, when it comes, I don't bet many conference futures, and Teddy just brought this up last week on the show. He's not one to bet futures because he normally likes to parlay, money line parlay situations. But, in this case, I think there is some value. Obviously, Purdue's the big favorite. They're basically plus 100. You're getting even money to bet Purdue. They're the best team in the Big Ten. But to me, it's simple. Purdue has been the worst conference tournament team in the country, bar none, the last 3 years. They're 1-11 against the spread. They won the Big Ten tournament last year, and they still only covered 1 game during that stretch. So if we knock Purdue out, that leaves Illinois the number 2 seed, Nebraska the 3, Northwestern the 4. Wisconsin is the 5. So I look at Northwestern. They're very banged up. I don't think they have the gumption to pull it. I look at Nebraska. To me, they're too new of a team to be able to challenge Illinois. So when I think of Illinois and they're going to face the Ohio State-Iowa winner, I give them the significant edge. They'll face the Nebraska, probably Indiana winner. I give them the matchup edge. On the flip side, I think Wisconsin takes care of Northwestern. I think Purdue gets by Minnesota or Michigan State. But I think Wisconsin can give Purdue a run for their money. And even if not, that would put Purdue in a very physical game coming off that Wisconsin game and now facing Illinois. Illinois is plus 300, plus 310. But one more note before I say that. I just pulled up odds this morning. I just looked at FanDuel and DraftKings, guys. And if you looked at the top 5 seeds in the Big Ten, Purdue's plus 100 in both, Illinois basically 3-1 in both. You have the 3, 4, and 5 seeds with at least $200 worth of difference. There's some huge variances when you're betting these conference tournaments, so do make sure you shop. But when you see the number 3 seed being a 7-1 or a 9-1 difference, or in the 5 seed a 12-1 or 15-1 difference, those are significant value to make sure you take the time and find the best odds in these conference tournaments.
I can't hear Teddy.
You're muted, Teddy. Teddy, you're muted.
I'm not muted anymore. In 3 of the last 6 Big Ten tournaments, a team seeded number 5 or higher has ended up cutting down the nets. Is this a tournament where 3-1 on anybody is worth it? I look at the Big Ten and I go, everybody's live here. Ohio State's live. Michigan State's live. 8 seeds, 10 seeds. Minnesota's live. Is this a tournament where 3-1 on anyone is reasonable value? Because to me, it seems a little bit short for anybody. Even I wouldn't take Purdue at 3-1.
Yeah, fair point, Teddy. It's a conference that in a minute we're going to show a chart of what the Big Ten is, and we're going to see that Big Ten favorites have only gone 36.8% against the spread, and they've only gone 64.1 against the spread. But again, it's a current form. I'll tell you what. One site I like going to is Bart Torvik. Bart Torvik is a site very similar to Ken Palm, but what you could do is you could change the dates and see their rankings for those teams. So I look at what Illinois has done down the stretch and the experience they've had. I mean, they missed Shannon for 5 or 6 games during the end of January, but since that point, they've been the number 2 offensive team in the country. So I think they have enough offense to compare. They're playing as well as anyone down the stretch. And I do like their current form. And to me, it's basically an eye test. I don't look to a lot of data, except I look at what the matchups are going to be, what I think those lines are going to be, and if I do like those matchups moving forward.
So I think I ruined my chances for tonight, Teddy. Vivian heard the entire move routine. Yeah. She screamed at me. Then when Ralph was speaking, I went out and I said, hey, you want to come on the show and talk about last night? And she was like, not a word out of her mouth, just.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Prez ain't getting action tonight, people. Okay, Ralph Michaels, you are the $2 Tuesday handicapper at WagerTalk.com. You have won 6 5% college basketball plays in a row. You're going for your 7th tonight. It is only $2. I wish you the best. Kick ass. Given that I'm not getting action tonight, I will be watching and cheering and screaming for your play. You got a chart for us. Let's get into it.
I will make one correction, Prez. Those are 6 straight March college basketball 5%. And I pulled those out because conference tournaments and March Madness is different than the regular season. So I've been seeing the postseason well. I've been number 1 at March at WagerTalk 2 of the last 3 years. So the data I do, the work I do, watching the games has worked out very well in the month of March. The chart, if you would, Daniel, it is conference tournaments favorites. 2000, the last 3 years. And these are just for the conferences that are still playing. So there's a few conferences that finished last week. I didn't include them in this chart. So they are based on ATS records from top to bottom. The over-unders are on the right. Now, I look at this chart, and this chart is not going to make me bet a favorite or a dog. But when you look at the bottom 2 teams, the bottom 2 conferences, the Big Ten, where the favorites have won only 37%. The Big East, I actually have that out of order, folks. I had a copy and pasted in, and I do have that reversed. The Big East at 37.9, the Big Ten at 36.8%, and straight up, Teddy, you talked about Big Ten favorites. Big East favorites have only won 58.6% of their games straight up. So I do look at where the dogs have done well because those are physical conferences, and it does make sense to me. If you also look to the very bottom right of the chart, take a look at those Big East conference games. 27.6 to the over. And guys, that means 62.4%, if my math is right. Make it 73.4% of all Big East games the last 3 years have gone under the total. As always, I will fix that typo on the bottom where I pasted the teams in the wrong order, as the Big Ten should be on the bottom. And I will post this chart on Twitter at CalSportsLV.
And Ralph, this chart it stands out like a sore thumb to me looking at it. Look at the multi-bid leagues. Big East at the bottom, Big Ten money losers, Big 12 money losers for the chalk, ACC and SEC basically, you push if you bet the favorites. Multi-bid leagues, the chalk has not done nearly as well as single bid or maybe two bid leagues. So is that something that stands out to you as well from this chart? Thinking, yeah, maybe the chalk's not the way to go in the quote unquote marquee college basketball conference tournaments.
Teddy, I absolutely love that point, and I feel silly for not having it brought up. Listen, if you're the 3 or 4 seed in any of the major conferences, except maybe the Pac-12, you know you're going dancing. And what would you rather do? Have a healthy team for Thursday, or try to win 4 or 5 straight games and then maybe get hurt, maybe have injuries, maybe be worn out for that early Thursday game after you played 4 or 5 straight days? So incredible point, Teddy. I completely agree with you. When you get to the championship, obviously you want to win the championship. So I bet if I took out the favorites in this, it may even be worse than that the first few rounds, where, again, you're a head coach. Your priority is to not win that one game Thursday or Friday. It is to become the national championship or do well for your school to get to the Sweet 16. So those priorities completely different for those teams at the bottom, which you pointed out.
There we go. Got all caught up there reading your chart. I was reading it on Slack. I love when you come on with these charts, Ralph Michaels. Make sure to tweet that out. Best of luck on your 5% play. $2, everybody. Ralph is going for 7 in a row. Thanks for joining us, Ralph Michaels. Teddy Covers, what did we learn in the wonderful world of sports betting?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about conference tournaments. Favorites, look, they can and do cover point spreads during conference tournament season. I had a crap night last night and had a college basketball favorite cover against me. St. Mary's ran out Santa Clara in the second half. That game got, not ridiculously ugly, but it didn't get there. But when we look at the big picture landscape, something Ralph just showed in our chart, a lot of these major conferences, look at the dogs, +2 or higher last night. 2-0 ATS in the Coastal, not the Colonial, the Coastal. Towson, Stony Brook both covered. Dogs went 2-0 Horizon. And again, I'm looking at +2 or higher. Now I'm going to be real. +1.5 is not a real dog to win. Neither is +2 for that matter, but I'm going to use it here. Cleveland State won by only 3. Wisconsin-Milwaukee won outright. We saw Montana State win straight up in the Big Sky as 8.5-point dogs. A big line move against them wrong. East Tennessee State came in under the number in the Southern Conference Championship, and on and on. It's okay to lay points in conference tournament, but expect more games than not to be competitive. Take some dogs this week. That said, teams that didn't respond well to adversity last week or the week before aren't necessarily going to respond well to adversity this week either. The teams that are ready to go home and be done with this season, those aren't necessarily teams I want my money on. Of course, unless they're playing a team that's struggling every bit as much as they are. I'm fascinated by Louisville NC State today. I really am. Conventional wisdom in Vegas. This is something I really wanted to talk about briefly, at least. The conventional wisdom. Dogs early in conference tournaments, especially in the Power 5 leagues, where the chalk teams have already clinched their big dance bid, something we just talked about with Ralph Michaels. But championship Saturday/Sunday, the class shows up. The lesser teams get gassed. Dogs early in these conference tournaments, in general, conventional wisdom, favorites when it comes to cutting down the nets. That's what I learned last night. Prez, well, I've actually learned it over the last 26 years in Las Vegas. Back to you, my friend.
Brother, one of our listeners, Eric DeLong, really nice guy, asked, Prez, are you still wearing your pants, lucky pants? Yep, still wearing them. So last night I go out for an expensive dinner with my rich brother. He paid. And I showed up to the restaurant in track pants. He's like, what's up with the track pants? I'm like, I'm on a huge 11-1 run. I got to wear the track pants. So I wore them at dinner last night. Tonight, I have a hockey game at 9:00. Teddy, I will wear my track pants under my hockey equipment tonight.
Yeah.
And they are going to stink so bad. And then I will wear them again tomorrow without washing them after I win tonight. Now, I know yesterday you got all geschmoodled. Second time today I've used that word about my promotion. So I'm not going to promote anything. I'm just going to tell everybody. If you go to WagerTalk.com and you look on the leaderboard, Prez is number 1 in the last 3 days in all sports. Prez is number 3 in the last 7 days of college basketball. Prez is number 1 in the last 3 days of NBA. Prez is number 1 in the last 3 days of NHL. So yes, I am number 1 in the last 3 days of all NHL and NBA, and college I'm kicking ass too. And yes, I'm up money over the whole season in college and NHL, but I'm not promoting. I will not tell you what I have today, and I will not tell you to go buy it. I just wanted to let you know how freaking hot I am. Ross Benjamin joining us, everyone. Ross! Man, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. A legend in this space, and a man who's done this for a long, long time. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be on with you guys. You know, you talked about marriage and trying to get your wife upstairs last night and do and advice. Maybe start with taking those pants off. You know, it's like a starter. It may work. But you know, what do I know? I've been married. I'm on my 3rd marriage, Prez. So you know, getting advice from me isn't always the best thing when it comes to marriages.
I was literally just texting Prez that I was going to go and say, if you want some action, maybe you take the pants, wash the pants, Well, so Ross,
action ship has sailed. Vivian is not happy with me right now. So
okay, stop. It's noon. You're going to tell me that from noon till when it's potentially time for action that you're not going to be able to turn that around? Come on, Lawrence.
I don't even think I'm going to try, Teddy. You
didn't get it last night, and now you're not going to try today? That's a man who's getting old. That's a man who's getting old.
That well said, Teddy. I am a man who's getting old. 3 wives, Ross Benjamin. How many daughters and granddaughters?
I got one child. She's 30. She's not a child anymore. She's 38, and I got a granddaughter. So I'm pretty happy with my life. You know, made some mistakes early on. Been with the same one for the last 16 years, which exceeded the first 2 combined. So I'm getting better with experience, Prez. You know?
Excellent. Your 4th marriage is going to be perfection. But his 4th one, he's getting better with experience. So now I've already jumped to the next one. Anyway, Ross, people think you look like Wayne Newton. That's not a negative. He's become a legend. They're saying it in the chat room. Let's get into it, man. Boston College playing Miami. College basketball going today. How do we bet this game?
Yeah, you know, these 2 teams, unless you're a fan of these 2 teams, you don't have the illusion that either one of them is going to make a deep run in the ACC tournament. But somebody has to come out on top here. And, you know, over the years, guys, and I'm preaching to the choir with you guys, but anybody who's new out there to sports betting, anybody who hasn't been doing it a long time, and anybody who's ever asked me over the years, what's the number one tip when it comes to sports betting that you could give to me above and beyond anything else, I always say, if you think like an odds maker, okay, you're always going to be one step ahead of the guy who doesn't.
Oh, no.
And,
oh, no. Oh, we're back.
Okay. Okay. Is there
Go
something?
ahead, Ross.
What do you-
If you think like an
All right.
odds maker. Yes, Ross, I'm going to help you. I have a dad, and I have to help him finish his thoughts. I'm very good at this.
Okay.
I'm just starting.
All right.
I'm in a real
finishing your
snappy
thoughts or
mood.
interrupting the other guy's thoughts. One of the two. Anyway, so here we have it. Okay. Where I lost my place here because, I'm getting old and it doesn't take much. In any event, Miami's lost 9 games in a row. 9 games in a row. Yet, the opening line in this game was Miami minus 1.5, and it's now up to 2. They played Boston College twice within this 9-game losing streak, lost both times by 8 and by 10. Okay. But, the easy thing to do, the obvious thing to do is to take Boston College. Why not? I mean, if Boston College beat them twice and they're an underdog and Miami's lost 9 in a row, how could you possibly take the favorite? Well, I beg to differ, my friends. Like Lee Corso has said on numerous occasions, not so fast. And if it looks too good in sports betting, most of the time it is. And I think this is a textbook example of such. You look at BC. If you take away the 4 matchups they've had down the stretch against Louisville, the worst team in the ACC, and the 2 wins they've had against Boston College, they've gone 0-7 straight up in ATS in the other 7 games, losing by like 9 points per game. And the one thing they always say, for underdogs is the ability to knock down 3-point shots. So I look at that when it comes to an even type game such as this one. Miami, 39.3% for the 3-point line over their last 5 games. So that may be a determining factor here. The other part is Larinaga, the head coach of Miami. I mean, this was a Final Four team last year. Obviously, they've been a huge, massive disappointment this season. He's taken 2 schools to the Final Four in George Mason and Miami. Let's not get caught up. I'm not leading you down the wrong path here. I have no way that I am going to even envision Miami making a deep run in this tournament, let alone getting to the Final Four. My point is, he's a very good tournament coach. And in an even game like this, I give the coaching edge, huge edge to Miami. But again, it's minus 1.5. And I always say, if you can get 140 or less on the money line on a short favorite, you don't hesitate to do that in baseball. Why would you do it in basketball? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take Miami here minus 130 over Boston College tonight.
Yeah, I'm seeing mostly 140s right now. Look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. This line has moved from Miami 1.5 to 2.5. And it's more, you can, if you shop around, you can find for Miami right now. I'm seeing them minus 135 here in Las Vegas. And a couple in the global books, but which was going to be my follow. I was going to ask you, is this a money line or is this a lay the points? But I want to ask you, okay, you talked about Larinaga, you talked about Miami's 3-point shooting. Everything I look in this game says it's a pick 'em game. It's a coin flip game, and now I'm laying 2.5, or I'm laying minus 140. Is a coaching edge a big factor in the first game of a tournament? Because I tend to look at the coaching edges mattering more game 2, game 3, game 4. That's where I want my money on Larinaga, the short turnarounds, as opposed to both teams with equal time to prepare.
Yeah, I think if you're getting into more quality teams, which neither one of these are, I would agree with you, Teddy. But when you get into a matchup like this, where both of these teams are pretty much bottom of the barrel ACC teams, both for the most part are struggling, I think I'll put more of an emphasis in that situation because I guess what I'm trying to say is you got an 0-9 team with a veteran coach like Larinaga. where kids would quit on other coaches in this situation. As you said, there's a lot of teams out there right now that are on, they can't wait to get the season done and go home. I just don't see these Miami kids, especially with the success they've had with Larinaga in this program as recently as last year, quitting on him in this situation. So your point is well taken, but I hope that's a sufficient answer for you.
Ross Benjamin joining us, everyone. And Ross, man, during the summer, we'd love to have you on. I'm sure you have the most colorful stories. You've been in this industry for so long. I mean, you're really outstanding at this game. You are part at Sports Memo of our 2 handicappers for $3. You've got an NBA play going tonight. It's a total. Tell us why people should buy you, play you, what you're about as a handicapper, etc. I'll shut up.
Well, I've been doing very well with totals in all sports. Let's start there. I mean, since September 18th of last year, I've gone 89-64 with my totals. That's 58%. Now, I know a lot of people out there will go, I can hit 58% on my own. And I know when I'm talking to Teddy and Prez, they know 58%. They can live with that all day, any day. Do we want to do better than that? Yes. But that'll make you a lot of money. And I've really done well with totals throughout my career. But recently, over the last 7 months, I've done very well with my all sports totals. And speaking of all sports, since August the 4th at Sports Memo, 345 and 295. And if you bet $100 per unit, like most people do, and I suggest, then you've made $4,150 during that course of time. That's good for number 3 on the earnings board at Sports Memo throughout that course of time. And that's going over 7 months now. So when streaks last that long and you're making decent money, of course, I would like to do much better. I had a brutal January. That's what held me down in that regard. And I'm always transparent when it comes to that. But again, folks, it's about the long term. Okay. It's not a 4-1 streak. It's a streak that goes over 7 months. I would like to think that's not a fluke, and neither should you.
Ross, you're getting some wonderful. Sorry, Teddy. Ross, you're getting some wonderful comments here. Prez, we need Ross on more, please. Let's get Ross on more. I respect his opinions. Ross is a class act. Ross the boss. So great, eh? Like, just amazing.
Yeah, it's refreshing because, we take a lot of heat sometime, Prez.
To say the least, but listen, excellent stuff. Let's get into our next game. Sorry, Teddy, you can set it up and I'll shut up. And I won't interrupt, Ross. I'll interrupt you, though,
Sure,
Teddy.
It's what you do. Let's talk NBA on TNT. Tuesday night NBA on TNT this week, because there's no Thursday night NBA on TNT, because maybe there is. There's next week where there won't be. Doesn't matter. Anyhow, tonight, T-Wolves, Clippers. Right now, look at the WagerTalk, the free WagerTalk live odds screen. I'm seeing the Clips -6.5 total here, 215. There are some 214.5s out there. What would you like to do with the Clippers and the T-Wolves?
Well, I'm going to look at the total, Teddy. These teams have played 3 times this year. All 3 of them have gone under the total. But, above and beyond that, just because they go under, those totals could have been set much higher than this one. The average total was in those 3 games. However, I look at the tempo of those games. You look at the tempo of all 3 games, and I measure that by field goal attempts per contest. And the tempo was at a snail's pace for all 3 of those contests. And everybody should know by now how good Minnesota has been defensively this year. Sometimes I think people lose sight of the fact that when the Clippers are locked in, especially when they step up in competition, they're a very good defensive team themselves. The Clippers, by the way, off a 124-117 home loss. And that game went over the total of 221.5. Here's the thing that I like looking at is how teams do after a win and how teams do after a total being over or under. Well, the Clippers 7-1 to the under their last 8 following the game that went over. Minnesota went over in their last 2 contests, and they've gone 7-0 to the under in their last 7 coming off back-to-back overs. And so I would have loved to have this at its opening number, Teddy. I loved it at 218. I bet it last night. But at 215, I still like it. Not love it, but I still like it. Obviously, some of the value for me has been taken away, but I'm still going to go under the total of 215. I see 215.5 we have up on the screen right now, even better. So there you have it, Teddy.
So when we look at the injury report for tonight, there's a ton of question marks. Kawhi and Paul George both sat on the second of back-to-backs on Sunday. I expect both those guys to play tonight. But on the Minnesota side, I really don't know if Gobert's going to go tonight. I know Towns isn't in tonight. I don't know if Kyle Anderson's going to go tonight. And those are 3 pretty key defensive players for Minnesota. Do you worry at all that the T-Wolves may be shorthanded that could affect this total in a higher scoring than expected type of way?
Yeah, I mean, that's a genuine concern, right? But I'm always from the school that if we know about that kind of stuff, Teddy, the odds makers certainly do too. And it's worked into the line, or baked into the line, as I like to say. Also, you mentioned some of those players. You're also losing their offensive production as well. Now, I agree. The majority of players you just mentioned, if not all of them, their defensive prowess is much better than their offensive side. But having said that, it's a concern. It was weighed in. I always look at injuries, but by the same token, I always look at the fact that I take into consideration, how's this, that when we see this, they know that and they bake it into the line as well. And that could be a reason, if you're losing that kind of defensive prowess, then why did the total come down from 218 to 215? So, yes, it is a concern, Teddy. It's a great point, but I'm not going to change my mind here. I'm going to stick to my guns at under 215 in this one.
Ross Benjamin, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day to join us, my brother. Teddy asked where your accent was from.
Western New York, Teddy.
Sure. I heard some New York, and then I heard a little drawl, and I couldn't place it.
Yeah.
But that makes perfect sense.
I'm from Western New York, so let me clarify that. 60 miles east of Buffalo. So I'm on the other end of the state when
Close
it comes to
me.
New York City. Yes.
Trigger.
Where are you?
I'm in Toronto, which is west north
Yeah,
New
you're
York.
3 hours away, Prez, So I'm right down to Dewey.
I did a lot of acid in Western New York, Ross. That's
yeah, back in the 70s, baby.
Yeah, well, it was in the 80s for me, but and the 90s. My last acid trip was 1992. Ross, what a pleasure having you on. I promise you that you will be on the show again.
I look forward to it, man. I appreciate you guys having me. It's an honor. And you guys have a wonderful week and knock 'em dead this week.
Thank you, my friend. Be good. Send my love to your third wife. Teddy, it's your big game breakdown. Then Andrew McInnis joining us. And if, of course, we get to 100 likes, I got 3 NHL bets for you guys tonight. Let's go, brother.
So the Pacers have been trending under since the All-Star break. Guys are hurt. Their pace has been slower. Their offensive efficiency down. Should we expect more of the same tonight? Big game breakdown. Let's talk OKC, Indiana. Right now, look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. I'm seeing the Pacers 6-point underdogs at OKC. Total sitting at 240.5. And I'll make it very clear. Every sharp dollar that's been bet on this game so far has bet on the over when it comes to the total. I got a promo code today. Let me jump in and give you guys a promo code. It's a good one. Teddy3 at checkout. Just use Teddy3 at checkout. Get $20 off any 3-day all-access pass. Good for me. Good for anybody, even Prez. Teddy 3 at checkout. $20 off a 3-day all access. But we talked about Indiana trending under since the All-Star break. But look what they've been playing. A bunch of slow-paced, defensive-minded foes. Orlando, Minnesota in the last 2 games. Under. Pelicans twice, also unders. 7-2 to the under since the All-Star break. But the 2 overs, both games with teams versus teams that play with pace, just like they do. They went over versus the Mavs. They went over versus the Raptors. And now, instead of the 247s, 248s, 251s we've been looking at for Indiana totals, we get a total sitting at 240.5. Up from 239 last night, but still much lower than it's been. Similar scenario here for OKC. Who they've been playing lately? A bunch of slower-paced, defensive-minded teams. Memphis, Miami, they had the Lakers, the Rockets twice. Under, push in those 5 games. The last 10 games OKC has played not against Memphis, Miami, the Lakers, or the Rockets. They're 10-1 to the over. I think that goes to 11-1 to the over after tonight's game. Expect pace, expect points, and look for the Thunder and Pacers to play a relatively high-scoring affair that goes over the total. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Prez.
Teddy covers 5-6 more minutes left of the show. Andrew McInnis sitting in for Dave Sharapan. I've already done 35 minutes with Andrew today. Andrew, let's go, bro. Coyotes, Minnesota Wild. Who's winning this game?
Not the underdog, that's for sure. This is a play that we're going to take a look at the Minnesota Wild. Teddy, I've been using this that you said a couple years ago that I've been sticking with. When a team is dead, they are dead. And this Coyotes team feels like they've been dead since Christmas, okay?
Yeah.
There's so many streaks we can look at. 3-17 last 20 games. 5-15 last 20 against Minnesota. And 2-12 last 14 games on the road. This Coyotes team, it was a nice story. Start of the year, good for them. They were actually a nice little team, scoring goals, getting good goaltending, and every single thing collapsed. I believe we're getting a good -125 in regulation here for this Wild team because, well, they haven't been playing their best hockey either. But they actually have some time. They could maybe leapfrog some teams. They have a slither of hope to make the postseason. And the last game they played, I learned something in the NHL. I learned a rule that I didn't even know existed, which I thought was pretty cool. Maybe I can share it with you guys here. In the NHL, in the overtime, when it's 3-on-3, you are allowed to pull your goalie to give yourself a 4-on-3. However, if you get scored on, you do not get the automatic point that you usually get.
I didn't know that.
In overtime. Yes, there we go. So
did it
Minnesota
happen?
did that. It happened and they scored. It happened and they scored. So Minnesota's coaching staff, they put their you-know-whats on the table and said, we need these 2 points. They put four guys out there and they scored. I believe in this Wild team right now. This is a clear as day bet on versus bet against. I'll take the Wild in regulation, -125.
Let's take a look at Minnesota in regulation time. That game's not going to OT. Fade the dead, says Andrew McInnis. Let's talk one more in the NHL for tonight. The Penguins and the Senators. Looking at the free WagerTalk live odds screen right now. This is basically a pick'em game. Pittsburgh maybe -110, -115. Total 6.5. A little bit of juice to the under. I'm seeing -115 on the under for Pittsburgh and Ottawa. Tell us what we do tonight with the Penguins and the Senators.
Well, I mean, speaking of dead teams, these are 2 teams that you're making money right now if you are betting against them, especially the Pittsburgh Penguins that were just so phenomenal for many, many years, with Sidney Crosby, with Malkin, with Chris Letang. This, to me, is kind of a change of the guard, passing the torch here. This Pittsburgh Penguins team is definitely just not the same team they once were. The funny thing is, people thought going into the year, it was going to be because they were old. But actually, all the old players played very well. It was the younger guys, the bottom 6 guys that didn't perform to their level. And the young guys on Ottawa, well, they haven't met expectations either. So these are 2 teams not happy with their seasons, bottom of the standings, especially Ottawa. and absolute sheer frustration. But when I see two teams out of playoff contention, bottom of the standings, frustrated as anything right now, going head to head, this is when I like to bet the overs. I like betting unders between two playoff bound teams, two teams in the same division. Every game matters. They're gearing up for the postseason. Maybe they'll meet each other in the postseason. But when I see two teams, and this applies to me for other sports as well, NFL, NBA, and of course here in the NHL, two teams that will not be making the playoffs, that have not been playing some strong defense whatsoever. But hey, here's a game that we have a chance to win. We're playing a team that also sucks right now. We can get there and get some goals. I like the over 6.5. I think these two bad teams get together and play what we like to call pond hockey tonight and go up and over 6.5. I don't think we see much defense in this one, guys.
Andrew McInnis, everyone, and I totally disagree with you on that play, and I'll be discussing it in the daily presidential address.
Tell me
you
why.
have a Dude, it's okay, man. It ain't your 5%. It's fine.
Okay.
Win your 5% tonight. Andrew's got a 5% play tonight. Tell us why we should be playing it, my friend.
It's a totals play. Totals have been my strongest play in the NHL season. That's been my best season out there, but the side play is not so great. Totals, team totals, whether it's been unders or overs, have been my strongest play over the past few weeks, past few months. I'm up 57 units lifetime since I joined WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com on NHL 5% plays. This is my Goal Fest game of the day. If you guys like overs, if you guys like watching exciting games, this is the one for you. Use the promo code NHL15. NHL15 will take $15 off my 5% play today. Or you can use promo code Andrew20 to take 20% off any long-term package at my page. Thanks a lot, guys.
Outstanding stuff. Good one, Teddy. Oh my God. Okay, we're moving away from that topic.
You gotta say
now.
It. I read it for you to say it.
Okay, so Teddy is trying to give me advice on how to get action again. His suggestion is to play Madonna Like a Virgin. Viv will love it. Why? I don't even like that song.
You're trying to make her feel, she's like the first time,
Oh, like the first time, baby, good a booty boo boo. It's time for our daily presidential address. Let's go. Okay, I got 3 bets to give out for you guys, all in NHL. I like them all. One is the same as Andrew's, one disagrees. Andrew McInnis was on Wager Talk today, so check that segment out if you're watching this on Twitter. Before we get into that, guys, I'm telling you I'm in must-bet mode, period, end of story. To give you perspective, I have a huge day planned for you guys. I got a 4% NBA money line bet. I am 33-15. That's 69% in 2 years of NBA first half bets. 2 years of NBA first half bets, 69%. I have one tonight. I have an NHL money line bet tonight. 29-15 this year in NHL money line bets. And I have 2 college basketball bets tonight. I'm on a 5-2 run in college basketball and up 43 units of profit. So that's what's on tap for tonight. As for 3 hockey plays, I really like one of my favorite plays on the board, the under 5.5 in the New York Rangers-Carolina game. If you take a look, these 2 teams, they're shutting their opponents down. Very hard to score against both of these teams. I think we're going to see a playoff-style atmosphere. I think we're going to see a hard-hitting game. I would be surprised if this game gets to 5 goals. I think we see a 3-1 score. The next game I'm looking at is Pittsburgh and Ottawa to go under the total. Now, Andrew came on the show and mentioned that he thinks this is going to be a pond hockey game, and he thinks this game will go over. I look at this game and I think, okay, well, Ottawa has scored 5 goals in their last 3 games. Pittsburgh has scored 1 goal in their last 3 games. Neither of these teams are scoring, and even if they're playing on a pond, I think this game goes under the total of 6.5. And the last game is, like Andrew mentioned, the Minnesota Wild in regulation against Arizona. I think Minnesota's a bet on team for the next little while, and the Arizona Coyotes have been a bet against team for the last 2 months. Nothing has changed there. Thank you all for watching. Teddy, I'm out of here, brother. Take us home.
Enjoy the games. Best of luck with your wagers. We'll be back right here with another episode of Wager Talk Today tomorrow. Same time, same channel, 9 a.m. here on the left.